Thank you so much for coming to see us, Michael. I'm really grateful. Michael Cashman, EastEnders star, founder of Stonewall, member of the European Parliament. What we're going to be talking about this afternoon are the huge changes that have taken place over the last 50 years in respect of lesbian and gay equality. And a quick trawl through the internet has produced over 100 developments just in that 50-year period. And those include legal changes, 1967 decriminalisation, 1996 Lisa Grant challenging to get benefits for her lesbian partner.
Southwest Trains, I remember it well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was a trade union official at the time, watching out for it. 2000, the lifting of the ban of gay men in the armed forces, and of course 2004, civil partnerships. But there were some negatives along the way as well. The 1969 Stonewall riots, which I believe led directly to the establishment of the Committee for Homosexual Equality here in the UK. The very vicious campaign against Peter Tatchell in the 1983 by-election. And of course the infamous 1988 Clause 28. And then there were some smaller developments, and I'm just be interested as to the role that you think they've had. 1971, the first ever gay dance in Kensington. 1987, the first gay kiss on television.
Yes.
Remember that one? And 2009, Gareth Thomas, Wales's most capped rugby player, has come out as gay. So a lot of change, but I think one of the things that's really interesting for us is to see the connection between legal changes and cultural changes and brave individuals moving the agenda on, because my sense is that legal changes alone wouldn't have done it.
I grew up in the 1950s, and as a gay man you had to learn very quickly, and this I think connects to why we've come where we are. As a gay man or a lesbian, you learn very quickly to become a chameleon, to get your colours right so that you can blend in. And when you choose not to get your colours right, that is when you stand out so starkly. And in a way, the standing out so starkly, the breaking of the stereotype, Clause 28, AIDS and HIV being depicted as, and I quote from The Sun, a gay plague, and a chief constable of Greater Manchester at that time saying that we were swirling around in a cesspit of our own making, became part of the determination to stand up and say, you're talking about me. The 1961 film of Victim, which depicted to the general public what it was like to lead a double life and then end up being blackmailed. And also, through Victim, it showed a very different aspect of a gay man. Again, it was about breaking the stereotype. Here was, through the depiction, someone that they thought could be normal, inverted commas, could be ordinary. And those changes in the 60s, and the 60s revolution, which I was growing up in, we had pubs and clubs. Yet you could still step outside that pub and club and be arrested if you looked or talked to another gay man for, and I quote, soliciting for an immoral purpose. And that often occurred. There were crackdowns. And again, there were brave individuals. There was an amazing drag queen who always would get arrested in Earl's Court, but would never take the caution, would always take it to court. And so the individuals helped to bring about the change in law. But what the change in 1967 did was it duped us all. Duped us all, right the way through, I believe, because we had commercial pubs, clubs and bars. There were no other changes in any aspects of affording legal equality to gay men, let alone lesbians, who were not even discussed in law. And we were seduced by the fact that we had our pubs, our clubs, our bars, our gay pride marches, which I remember going on, about 500 of us walking along shouting 2, 4, 6, 8, is that copper really straight? But no changes came about. And it wasn't until AIDS and HIV where we saw people suffering the most appalling defamation and discrimination at the hands of the tabloid press and some politicians who should have known better, of differing parties, that we came together, the lesbian, gay, bisexual community and the heterosexual community, binding together to fight that kind of oppression, I believe, was the very beginning of a range of individuals saying, you're talking about me and you cannot do that any longer. The people who came out as HIV positive, it was Madonna who said, to come out as a lesbian or a gay man is to be a hero. To come out as someone who is HIV positive is to be a fucking warrior, because of all of the forms of oppression and discrimination that you take on. And we should not forget that people were forced out of their jobs, forced out of their homes. But it was, I believe, that and then Section 28, which amalgamated the heterosexual community and the LGBT community together with a determination and a purpose.
I wanted to ask you about that actually, because it seemed to me that there are a lot of brave individuals and a lot of the battles were led by lesbians and gay men as individuals, but the link with the heterosexual community seems pretty crucial there really, and just wondering how important it is to have a wide range of allies.
Without the supply of allies, we lose the whole concept of the universality of human rights. And the thing that distinguishes us as human beings, and my God, I wish more politicians used it, is our ability to imagine. And once you imagine, what if that were me? Or my brother, my sister, my father, my uncle, my aunt, what if that were me or them? Would I allow that to continue? But if the answer is no, then it shouldn't continue for another. And it is that connection which makes absolutely certain in everything we do in the European Parliament that when we talk about equality, we talk about the range of equalities that make up the single human being.
It's really nice to hear you speaking so powerfully, because of course that's the basis of our commission and our brand new 2010 Equality Act, that it does bring everybody together, all those different linkages.
But that connection means that the minorities are a majority. And again, I go back to Section 28. In 1987, all of the political parties said, well, of course, we don't want the promotion of homosexuality, and it went in at the committee stage. But what that did was it woke up lesbians and gay men because we believed, because of our bars and our clubs and the fact that we could, by and large, be ourselves. It woke us up because we thought we had equality. But because of the threat that this so-called promotion by a local authority posed in so many areas, because they wouldn't define promotion, it brought in the heterosexual community, the artistic community, the academic communities. There was a huge momentum that said this is wrong, and on that momentum was founded the Stonewall Group, and again, a change in law, a negative change in law, had brave individuals standing up and coming out. I came out rather earlier. Some would argue it was very difficult to keep me in through portraying a non-stereotypical gay man on the most popular BBC programme ever. We were going out to 17 million people in an episode. And so being on EastEnders and the gay kiss, the gay relationship, questions in the House of Commons, the moral campaigner Mary Whitehouse demanding that these characters be taken off the show. I remember the headlines. There I was on the front page of the Daily Star, and the headline was filth, and underneath, get this off our TV now. And so the combination of the media affecting public opinion, giving an image to something that people only otherwise read about in newspapers, tidbits, News of the World, etc., etc., or in the backroom gossip. Suddenly to have an image that was ordinary was incredible. But that, in conjunction with Section 28, people like Ian McKellen coming out, Peter Tatchell so forcefully coming out after the Bermondsey by-election, when all of the political parties had to hang their heads in shame. And it's the combination of brave individuals and some that we didn't even know about, that were outed either by themselves or outed by others in small communities. These have been the fabric that has woven the determination for equality.
I'd like to explore a little bit the role of the law, because we talked 1967 decriminalisation, but it's only really in this decade that it's come to fruition that you've got protection from discrimination in employment, protection from discrimination in the provision of goods, facilities and services, and most latterly now in the 2010 Act, public authorities will have the obligation to promote equality on all aspects, including lesbian and gay issues. So I'm wondering how you think those recent developments, and of course civil partnerships were only this century as well, how those legal developments, whether they're just reinforcing things that had been campaigned for, or whether actual changes will accrue from these new legal rights.
In the lesbian and gay movement, and certainly within Stonewall, I remember Angela Mason saying that achieving an equal age of consent was vital, because then you had the precedent for equality. And that was what we pursued vigorously. And recognising that you change the laws and social attitudes catch up later. And then that's down to like the media and people who are out to help bring about that change in social attitudes. But I do believe that the law has to come first, and that's what I mean about, as a politician, if you look back, all of these changes have occurred ahead of public opinion. All of the good changes, I believe, whether it's in relation to ending discrimination on race, ethnicity, gender, getting rid of the capital punishment, if you'd asked the public at the time, the public would have said, no, we're not ready. And that's what I mean about the courage to be unpopular, to do what is right for the long term, because arguably laws just set the benchmarks by which it expects its citizens of its country to abide. And then upon that you build. But certainly if someone's going to discriminate against you because of a perceived difference, you should have that equal protection of the law. And civil partnerships are, I believe, slightly different in that it gets into the area of the encouragement and the celebration of a union between two people. And I remember Angela Mason asked me to talk to the then Prime Minister about it. And I remember in the garden at number 10 saying, can we get into the Queen's speech? I think it was 2003. Civil partnerships. And I know Barbara Roach, the Equalities Minister, had been working on it. And he looked at Sally Morgan, his Chief of Staff, and he went, we can do that, can't we? And she went, yeah. And he said, well, there you are. And I said, no, I'm prepared to fight a bit longer for this. But the changes, with a government that knew it had to bring about a change in laws in order to achieve equality, the arguments have been won in the opposition years. We now needed the momentum to occur in government. And that occurred from, I think it was very early on in 98 or 99, when in the Queen's speech was brought in a commitment to an equal age of consent. And when I heard the Queen read it, I think I almost cried.
We've looked back at a lot of the successes, a lot of the victories along the way, but we are only part way along the road. We've got still some way to go. I'm wondering if you could comment on what still has to change, and in particular, whether you think public services, health and education are now beginning to meet the needs of lesbian and gay people better. But other issues as well, hate crime, you know, gay people still beaten up in the street. What are your thoughts about those services and how far along the road we are?
We're not quite there, but and we have to have a commitment to meet those services that are specific to lesbians, gay men, bisexual and transgendered people. You know, we haven't properly dealt with transphobia. We haven't properly dealt with, and we have a brilliant record in law on what we've done in relation to trans people's rights. But it's a whole cultural change that's got to go on. And the deaths of gay men who've been beaten up, attacked for no other reason. These are powerful reminders, these deaths, the inequalities, the people who still say, I don't care if they come to my boarding house, I will turn them away. It is the most brilliant reminder that we must remain vigilant and that the fight for equality goes on every single day. It never goes away. And that is why what happens to that child who grows up different is as important to us as if it was us. That's the universality of human rights, and when we lose it, we stop being human beings.
We've talked about the phenomenal changes over the last 50 years. I don't know if you could imagine what your life would have been like if we hadn't have had all the changes we're talking about today.
You know, when I came out to my mum, it was brilliant, and she said I always knew. When I came out to my dad, he said he didn't want to know. He was old-fashioned. And for me, it was unimaginable that in my lifetime I would be able to celebrate a civil partnership. I never thought it would happen. But for me, the great happiness was tinged by the sadness that my mum and dad were not there. Right. They died. But through, you know, others have had similar experiences. But without these changes, who knows? Born in the East End of London, my dad a docker, my mum an office cleaner. Maybe I would have buried my life in lies and secrecy, got married, become a shop steward in the docks, ended up at Tilbury causing mayhem and confusion, and ended up leading a double life and a life so unfulfilled. To be yourself and to be open is an amazing privilege in life, and to throw away that privilege would be a waste. And to be loved makes you special amongst others, and it's that love, whether it's from your family or from your partner, like my partner of 27 years, Paul Cottingham. It allows you to stand up to those who wish to diminish your life and diminish the lives of others. And interestingly, they will never win, because the world only spins forward. Sometimes it gets slowed down. Sometimes you see the finger of a dictator or a politician trying to push it back, but no. The forces of time push us forward. But as long as we keep our eyes open and our ears, and that brilliant ability to imagine, what if that were me, then defending human rights goes on every single day, and we'll build upon it. We'll get there.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time and just giving so much of yourself. It's been amazing, really powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.